My name is Brittany Thompson, and at 68 years old, I never imagined I would be fighting for my own bedroom in the house I paid off 30 years ago. When my daughter Amanda and her husband moved in temporarily, I never thought it would lead to her laughing in my face when I asked about reclaiming my own master suite. She told me it belonged to her in-laws now. What she didn't know was that her laughter lit a fire in me that would change everything. Before I tell you how I turned this situation around, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you want more stories about standing up for yourself. Harold and I were married for 42 beautiful years, before cancer took him from me 4 years ago. We raised our family in this 4-bedroom colonial-style home in a quiet suburb of Minneapolis. The house has been paid off for decades, thanks to Harold's careful financial planning and my years teaching 2nd grade at Lakeside Elementary. It's not a mansion by any means, but it's spacious, well-maintained, and filled with memories. The master bedroom was where Harold took his last breath, holding my hand and telling me to live fully for both of us. My relationship with my daughter Amanda used to be something I treasured deeply. She was always my little girl with the bright smile and determination that reminded me so much of myself. Even after she married Patrick 8 years ago, we maintained our Sunday dinners and holiday traditions. Amanda would call me daily just to chat, and I was the first person she came to for advice or to share good news. The trouble began last year when Patrick lost his position at the marketing firm where he had worked for nearly a decade. The company downsized, and despite his seniority, Patrick was among those let go. They had been living comfortably but without much savings to speak of. Their mortgage was substantial, and with Amanda's income as a dental hygienist, they quickly fell behind on payments. When Amanda called me in tears about possibly losing their home, my response was immediate and heartfelt. "You can stay with me until you get back on your feet," I told her. We agreed they would take the guest bedroom on the main floor while Patrick looked for new employment, and they saved enough for a security deposit on an apartment. "It will just be for 3 or 4 months," Mom Amanda assured me. "We really appreciate this." I was actually looking forward to the company. The house had felt so empty since Harold passed. I spent too many evenings talking to his photograph, and the silence sometimes felt like it might swallow me whole. Having my daughter back under my roof seemed like a blessing in disguise. They moved in on a rainy April morning, bringing what they called the essentials, which turned out to be considerably more than I had anticipated. The 2-car garage was soon filled with their furniture and boxes, leaving my sedan parked in the driveway for the first time in years. The first few weeks were pleasant enough. Amanda cooked dinner occasionally, and we would watch my shows together in the evenings. Patrick spent his days sending out resumes and networking, or so he said. I noticed he also spent hours playing video games in the guest room when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Looking back, the warning signs were there from the beginning. Amanda rearranged the living room furniture without explaining that it made better use of the space. Patrick complained about the water pressure in the guest bathroom and suggested I invest in plumbing upgrades. Small things, but they represented the first cracks in our arrangement. One evening, I came home from my book club to find they had replaced my beloved floral curtains in the living room with modern blinds. "Those old curtains were blocking so much natural light," Amanda explained when I asked about it, "and they looked a bit dated, Mom. This freshens up the whole room, don't you think?" I swallowed my objections. The curtains had been a gift from Harold on our 35th anniversary, but I told myself it wasn't worth creating tension. Family helps family, after all. That was what my parents had taught me, what Harold and I had taught Amanda. Patrick developed a habit of making passive-aggressive comments about the house. "This carpet has seen better days," or "that wallpaper is straight out of the 80s. Each remark stung, but I smiled and nodded. They were going through a difficult time, and I didn't want to seem like an overly sensitive old woman. My friend Doris from church noticed the change in my demeanor during our weekly coffee dates. "Brittany, you seem stressed. Is everything all right with Amanda and Patrick living there?" "They're just settling in, I would say. It's an adjustment for everyone." But the truth was, I had begun to feel like a guest in my own home. I found myself asking permission to watch my programs on the television Harold and I had purchased together. I began eating dinner in the kitchen instead of the dining room, because Patrick preferred to work at the dining table. I started tiptoeing around early in the mornings, afraid to wake them as I prepared for my volunteer shifts at the community center. The loneliness after Harold died had made me vulnerable. I realized that later. At the time, I was simply grateful for human connection, even if it came with conditions I would never have accepted before grief softened my boundaries. 3 months turned into 5, with no mention of moving out. Patrick had found part-time contract work that paid less than half his previous salary, and Amanda had reduced her hours at the dental office to help him network. They had stopped actively looking at apartments, though I pretended not to notice. Then one Tuesday evening, as I was preparing a pot roast for dinner, Amanda approached me with what seemed like an innocent request. "Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something," she began, perching on a kitchen stool. "My in-laws are coming to visit in 2 weeks. They had planned to stay at a hotel, but with our current situation." She trailed off, looking at me expectantly. "We can make up the sofa in the den," I suggested. "It pulls out into a queen bed." Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "The thing is, Dad has back problems, and Mom is used to certain comforts. I was thinking maybe you could let them use the master bedroom, just for the 2 weeks they're here." I felt a knot form in my stomach. The master bedroom was my sanctuary, the one place in the house that remained exactly as it had been when Harold was alive. His reading glasses still sat on the nightstand. The quilt his mother had made us as a wedding gift still covered the bed. "I don't know, Amanda. All my things are there, and my medication schedule is set up in that bathroom. And my arthritis makes it hard to sleep on anything but my adjustable mattress." "Please," Mom, Amanda pressed. "It would just be temporary, and it would mean so much to them. We can move your essential medications to whichever room you use, and I promise everything will go back exactly as it was." Against my better judgment, I agreed. My arthritis had been flaring that week, which made moving my belongings from the master suite to the small study downstairs particularly painful. The study had a pull-out sofa that Harold had occasionally used when his snoring was particularly bad, but it was nowhere near as comfortable as my bed, and the room itself was cramped once the sofa was extended. Richard and Judith arrived with 4 large suitcases for their 2-week stay. From the moment they entered my home, it became clear that their son had inherited his sense of entitlement honestly. "The house is a bit dated but charming," Judith commented as I showed them around. Within hours, she had rearranged my kitchen cabinets because the organization made no sense to her. Richard commandeered the living room recliner, Harold's favorite chair, and referred to it as his spot for the duration of their visit. I found myself retreating to the study more and more, using my arthritis as an excuse to avoid their company. The pull-out sofa left my back in constant pain, and climbing the stairs to use the main bathroom since the study had none was becoming increasingly difficult. The final straw came when I overheard Judith telling Amanda that they should update this place while they were living there. "Your mother clearly hasn't changed anything since the Stone Age," she said with a laugh. "And that master bathroom needs a complete overhaul." After what felt like the longest 2 weeks of my life, Richard and Judith finally departed. I waited patiently for Amanda to mention moving back to the guest room so I could reclaim my bedroom. A day passed, then 3, then a week. Finally, I approached her as she was folding laundry in what used to be my bedroom. "Amanda, now that your in-laws are gone, when should I move my things back in here?" She didn't look up from the laundry. "Actually, Mom, Patrick and I were thinking of staying in here. The room is bigger, and we need the space since we're staying longer than expected. The guest room is just too cramped for both of us, and all our things." "But this is my bedroom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "All my things are here, and the bathroom is set up for my needs." "We moved your essential items to the study," she replied dismissively. "And Patrick installed a grab bar in the hallway bathroom for you. It's actually safer for you not to have to climb the stairs multiple times a day at your age." Patrick appeared in the doorway behind me. "We're doing you a favor, Brittany. The stairs are a fall risk for someone your age. My uncle broke his hip last year, and that was the beginning of the end for him." I stood there speechless as they continued their tasks, as if the matter was settled. In my own home, I had been dismissed like a child who didn't know what was best for her. That night, I cried myself to sleep on the uncomfortable pull-out sofa, clutching the photograph of Harold that I had rescued from my bedroom before Amanda could relocate it to the basement with my other clutter. 2 more months passed, and I remained displaced from my bedroom. The physical toll was becoming unbearable. My back pain worsened from sleeping on the inadequate pull-out mattress. Dark circles formed under my eyes from sleep deprivation. Though Patrick had mentioned concern about me using the stairs, I was now forced to climb them multiple times daily to access the bathroom when the main floor half bath was occupied. One afternoon, I returned from grocery shopping to find my house filled with the sharp smell of paint. Following the odor upstairs, I discovered Amanda and Patrick had removed all the photographs from the master bedroom walls. They were painting over the soft blue that Harold and I had chosen together 20 years ago, with a stark white. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just freshening things up," Amanda replied cheerfully, roller in hand. "This color is much more modern." "But you didn't ask me. This is my house." Patrick stepped forward. "We live here too now, Brittany, and this room desperately needed updating. Those built-in bookshelves Harold installed were taking up valuable wall space, so we had them removed yesterday." My heart sank as I noticed the empty wall where Harold's handcrafted oak bookshelves had stood. He had spent months building them, carefully measuring and sanding each shelf to fit perfectly against the wall. "Where are the bookshelves?" "And Harold's books?" I asked, my voice shaking. "The shelves were too damaged during removal to save," Patrick said dismissively. "The books are in boxes in the garage. You never read them anyway." That night, I went to the garage and found Harold's precious first edition Hemingway novels stacked haphazardly in damp cardboard boxes. I brought as many as I could carry back to the small study, arranging them on the desk as a small act of rebellion. The financial strain was becoming apparent as well. While Amanda and Patrick claimed to be saving for their future, I was still covering all utilities, property taxes, and groceries for the household. My fixed retirement income was not designed to support 3 adults, and I found myself dipping into savings each month to make ends meet. When I gently mentioned the utility bills had doubled since their arrival, Amanda grew defensive. "We're family, Mom. Are you really going to nickel and dime us while we're struggling? Patrick's new job barely covers our credit card minimums." I backed down, immediately ashamed for having brought it up. But later that week, I noticed Amanda wearing new designer boots and carrying a handbag that I knew cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Amanda's attitude toward me continued to deteriorate. She became impatient when I asked questions about her day or offered to help with dinner. Our once warm relationship had cooled to polite tolerance at best, outright dismissal at worst. One evening, I overheard Patrick on the phone in the kitchen. "Yeah, living with the old lady has its challenges, but the free rent makes it worthwhile. Plus, the house will be Amanda's eventually anyway." My hands trembled as I quietly backed away from the doorway. Was that how they saw me? As an inconvenience they were tolerating for financial gain, as someone whose death they were anticipating for inheritance. The home that had once been my haven became a place of anxiety. Amanda began inviting friends over for dinner parties without consulting me. I would find myself trapped in the small study, while laughter and music filled my home uninvited to join in festivities under my own roof. "Mom, could you stay in the study tonight? We're having some friends over for drinks and cards." I became accustomed to this request, retreating to my increasingly smaller corner of the house. I started eating quick meals before they got home from work to avoid awkward dinner table conversations where I felt like an intruder. The worst incident came when I discovered Amanda had boxed up my photo albums as clutter. These albums contained the visual history of my life, with Harold, our wedding, the birth of Amanda, family vacations, and holidays. They were irreplaceable treasures that told the story of our family. They were collecting dust and taking up space in the hallway bookcase, Amanda explained when confronted. "We needed room for our things. They're just in the basement, not thrown away." I retrieved the albums that evening, finding them stacked on a damp concrete floor near a leaky pipe. The water damage to several pages was already evident. I brought them to the study, adding to the growing collection of rescued mementos that were making the small room increasingly cramped. My lifelong friend Eleanor noticed the change in me during our weekly lunch date. "Brittany, you've lost weight, and not in a good way. What's happening at home?" For the first time, I confided the full situation to someone. "I feel like I'm being erased from my own home bit by bit," I concluded, wiping away tears. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "This isn't right, Brittany. You're not being selfish for wanting respect in your own home." Her validation made me weep harder. I had been gaslighting myself for months, believing that my discomfort was unreasonable, that I was failing as a mother by not sacrificing everything willingly. "Harold would be furious if he could see how they're treating you," Eleanor added softly. Remember how protective he was of your happiness." She was right. Harold had always put my needs first, just as I had done for him. Our marriage had been a partnership of mutual respect and consideration. What was happening in my home now was something entirely different. 8 months after Amanda and Patrick moved in, I received another unwelcome announcement over breakfast. "Mom, my parents are coming back for a month this time," Amanda said, casually scrolling through her phone. "Dad finally retired and they want to spend some quality time with us before they take their big European cruise." My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. A month. In my bedroom again? "Their bedroom," Patrick corrected, not looking up from his tablet. "They're really looking forward to it. My dad mentioned how much he enjoyed that adjustable mattress last time." Later that day, I returned from the grocery store to find a delivery truck outside. 2 men were carrying a new bedroom set up the driveway. "What's this?" I asked Amanda, who was directing them toward the front door. "New furniture for the master suite," she replied. "The old set was so outdated and we wanted to make the room perfect for Mom and Dad's visit." "You bought new furniture without consulting me." "For my bedroom?" Amanda rolled her eyes. "Mom, we've been over this. And don't worry about the cost. We used your credit card since you always say we're family and family helps family." I felt like I'd been slapped. "You used my credit card without permission." "I'm an authorized user," she shrugged. "Have been since college. It's not a big deal." That evening I went upstairs when they were out at dinner with friends. I barely recognized my former bedroom. The warm cherry wood furniture Harold and I had purchased as a 20th anniversary gift to ourselves was gone, replaced by a stark modern set in gray and white. The walls were now an impersonal shade of grage, with none of the family photographs that had previously adorned them. Opening what used to be my nightstand drawer, I reached for Harold's wedding ring, which I kept in a small velvet pouch. My heart stopped when my fingers found only empty space. I frantically searched every drawer under the bed in the closet. "Amanda," I called out when I heard them return, "have you seen Dad's wedding ring? It was in my nightstand drawer." My daughter appeared in the doorway, annoyance clear on her face. "Oh, that old thing. It was just collecting dust in the drawer. I put it away somewhere safe." Where I demanded my voice stronger than it had been in months. "That ring is precious to me." She waved dismissively. "I don't remember exactly. Probably in one of your boxes in the basement. It was just in the way when we were setting up the new furniture." Patrick appeared behind her. "Brittany, are you becoming forgetful? That ring hasn't been in that drawer for months. We asked you about moving it when we first took over the room, and you said it was fine to store it elsewhere." "That's not true," I protested. "I would never say that about Harold's ring." Patrick exchanged a meaningful look with Amanda. "Maybe we should think about having her memory evaluated," he said, as if I weren't standing right there. "My grandmother started like this before her dementia diagnosis." That weekend, Amanda insisted on hosting a formal family dinner with her brother Thomas and his wife, who were visiting from Seattle. She claimed it was to discuss family matters. I spent the day helping prepare the meal, hoping to reestablish some connection with my daughter. During dinner, Thomas asked about my welfare, noting that I seemed quieter than usual. "Actually," I said, seizing the moment, I wanted to talk about moving back into my bedroom. "I've been patient for 8 months now, but my back can't take that pull-out sofa anymore, and with my arthritis." Amanda's laughter cut me off mid-sentence. It wasn't a gentle chuckle, but a dismissive, almost mocking sound that silenced the table. "Mom, that's for the in-laws now. You're fine where you are." She turned to her brother as if to share a joke. "She keeps forgetting we rearranged things. The smaller room is much more manageable for her at this stage." Patrick nodded solemnly. "Besides, we're planning to stay long-term. It makes sense for us to have the master. We need the space more than she does." Thomas looked uncomfortable but said nothing. His wife stared at her plate. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom, walking past Patrick's laptop on the dining room table. A document caught my eye, durable power of attorney, with my name listed as the principal. They were preparing to take legal control over my decisions, without my knowledge. Later that night, I overheard Amanda on the phone in the kitchen, thinking I had gone to bed. "We're just waiting for Mom to agree to assisted living. Then we can take over the house completely," she was saying to someone. "The property values in this neighborhood have skyrocketed, and the house is paid off." Patrick thinks we could sell it for at least 3 times what they paid originally. My blood ran cold. They weren't just taking over my home, they were planning to take everything. The final blow came the next morning when I overheard Amanda talking to Patrick in the kitchen. "Mom is too old to need so much space anyway," she said dismissively. "The study is more than adequate. Most people her age are in one-room nursing homes." In that moment, something broke inside me. But in its place, something stronger formed. I remembered who I was before grief had made me pliable, before loneliness had made me willing to accept crumbs of affection at the cost of my dignity. Harold's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. "Stand up, Brittany. This is your home. Our home." That night in the study, I allowed myself one good, thorough cry. I buried my face in Harold's old sweater that I had rescued from the donation pile and let out all the hurt, betrayal, and anger that had been building for months. Then I washed my face, straightened my shoulders, and began to plan. The next morning, I called Eleanor. "Can I speak with Michael?" I asked. Her son was an attorney who specialized in elder law. 2 hours later, I sat in Michael's office downtown explaining the situation. He listened intently, taking notes, and occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. "Mrs. Thompson, what you're describing could potentially qualify as elder abuse, specifically financial exploitation and psychological abuse," he explained. "As the sole owner of the home, you have every right to establish boundaries and expectations for anyone living there, family or not." "What can I do?" I asked, my hands steady for the first time in months. "First, we secure your financial accounts. Then we establish clear documentation of ownership and boundaries. Finally, we can present options for a formal tenant agreement or eviction notice." That afternoon, I visited my bank and removed Amanda as an authorized user on all accounts. I closed the credit card she had used and opened a new one. I met with my financial advisor to ensure all my investments and insurance policies listed my son Thomas as the sole beneficiary until further notice. The locksmith came 3 days later while Amanda and Patrick were at work. Jerry was an old friend of Harold's from the Elks Lodge, and he was happy to provide a consultation on improving home security for a widow living alone. "Your exterior locks are quite outdated, Brittany," he told me after examining the doors. "I'd recommend replacing them with these modern deadbolts, much more secure." I took his card and told him I'd think about it, knowing exactly when I would call him back. Next, I quietly took photos of all my remaining valuables and important documents. I searched Amanda's room while she was out and found Harold's wedding ring in her jewelry box. I reclaimed it along with several other family heirlooms that had mysteriously disappeared from my possession. I created a detailed inventory of everything that belonged to me versus items Amanda and Patrick had brought into the house. Michael helped me draft a formal letter establishing my rights as the homeowner and outlining reasonable expectations for anyone residing in my property. The final piece fell into place when Amanda announced that she and Patrick were planning a long weekend trip to Atlantic City with friends. "You'll be okay on your own for 3 days, right, Mom?" she asked, already packing her suitcase. "Of course, dear," I replied with a smile. "You two deserve a break. Take your time and enjoy yourselves." The moment their car pulled away from the curb that Friday morning, I put my plan into action. First called Jerry the locksmith, who arrived within the hour. "I'm ready for those new locks now," I told him. "All exterior doors, plus I'd like a separate lock installed on the master bedroom door." As Jerry worked, I called the small moving company Michael had recommended. 4 hours later, a team of 3 efficient young men helped me relocate all of Amanda and Patrick's belongings from the master suite to the guest bedroom they had originally occupied. Their excess items went into neatly labeled boxes in the garage. I supervised the careful removal of the new bedroom furniture to the basement storage area. From the attic, I retrieved our original bedroom set that Amanda had moved without my permission. The movers reassembled it in the master suite, placing everything exactly as it had been before. While they worked, I discovered another shock paperwork indicating Amanda had used my house as collateral for a personal loan without my knowledge, forging my signature on the documents. I added this to the growing file of evidence Michael was compiling. By evening, the master suite was transformed back into the room Harold and I had shared for decades. I rehung our wedding portrait above the bed and placed his reading glasses back on the nightstand. I scattered the potpourri I loved, but Amanda had deemed old lady scented, and remade the bed with the quilt Harold's mother had made. Michael arrived as promised at 6-document folder in hand and overnight bag over his shoulder. "Are you sure you want me to stay?" he asked. "I'm happy to, but it's not necessary legally." "Please," I replied. "I'd feel safer having a witness present when they return. And honestly, I'm not sure how Patrick will react." We spent that evening finalizing the paperwork. Michael had prepared 3 options: a formal month-to-month rental agreement with clear terms and boundaries, a 60-day notice to vacate, or an immediate eviction notice based on unauthorized use of my property and financial exploitation. "You don't have to decide immediately which to use," Michael explained. "Let's see how they respond to the initial boundaries." On Sunday afternoon, I was sitting calmly in my reclaimed bedroom when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Minutes later came the sound of a key scraping unsuccessfully in the new lock, followed by increasingly aggressive jiggling of the doorknob. "What the hell?" I heard Patrick's voice through the door. Then came pounding. "Brittany, the key isn't working. Let us in." I descended the stairs slowly, Michael behind me, and approached the front door. "Who is it?" I called, following Michael's advice to establish the new power dynamic immediately. "You know damn well who it is," Patrick shouted. "Open the door." I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door, standing straight and blocking the entrance. Michael stood beside me, his presence clearly surprising them. "Amanda Patrick." I nodded. "Welcome back." Patrick tried to push past me, but I stood firm. "What's going on? Why are the locks changed?" Amanda demanded. "And who is this?" "This is Michael Brennan, my attorney," I replied calmly. "We need to talk before you come back into my home." Patrick's face flushed with anger. "Your home? This is our home too. You can't lock us out." "Actually, she can," Michael interjected smoothly. "As the sole owner of this property, Mrs. Thompson has every legal right to determine who enters her home and under what conditions." I handed Amanda the folder containing the documents Michael had prepared. "These are your options moving forward. You're welcome to continue living here, but there will be changes." Amanda flipped through the papers, her expression shifting from confusion to shock to anger. "A rental agreement. You expect us to pay rent to live in our own mother's house? This is ridiculous." "Those are the terms if you wish to continue living here," I replied steadily. "You'll note that the rental amount is well below market value for the area. You'll be responsible for your share of utilities. And you'll be occupying the guest room, not the master suite." Patrick snatched the papers from Amanda. "You changed the locks on us, moved our things. This is insane. You can't just throw away everything we bought for the master bedroom." "I didn't throw away anything," I corrected. "Your items are neatly packed in the garage. The furniture you purchased with my credit card without permission has been moved to the basement. You're welcome to take it when you leave, though I should note that unauthorized use of someone else's credit card is fraud." Patrick's face contorted with rage. "You won't get away with this. We'll fight you in court if we have to." "I wouldn't recommend that," Michael said calmly. "I have substantial documentation of financial exploitation, including Mrs. Thompson's house being used as collateral for a loan without her knowledge or consent. We also have evidence of attempts to secure power of attorney without her informed consent, which could potentially lead to criminal charges." Amanda's face paled. "Mom, you can't be serious about this. We're family." "Yes, we are," I agreed, "which is why I expected to be treated with dignity and respect in my own home. That didn't happen." I handed her a key to the new locks. "You have 3 choices: accept the new boundaries and rental agreement. Take 60 days to find alternative housing or leave immediately. But understand that things have changed. This is my house, and I will be treated with respect in it." Patrick stormed off to the car, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Amanda stood frozen on the porch, tears welling in her eyes. "Just so you know," I added softly, "I've had security cameras installed. Any attempts to retaliate or remove items that don't belong to you will be recorded." As they drove away to figure things out, I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and liberation. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in nearly a year, I slept soundly in my own bed, in my own room, in the home that was truly mine. The next morning, I awoke in my reclaimed bedroom, feeling like myself for the first time in months. Sunlight streamed through the curtains Harold and I had chosen together, casting familiar patterns on the floor. I took my time getting ready, savoring the private bathroom with the walk-in shower Harold had installed when my arthritis first began to trouble me. At precisely 10 o'clock, Jerry the locksmith returned to install the final security measures we had discussed. A peephole for the front door window, locks for the ground floor, and a small safe in my closet for valuables and important documents. "Harold would be proud of you," Brittany Jerry said as he worked. "He always said you were the strongest woman he knew, even if you didn't always see it yourself." Those words warmed me as I continued reclaiming my home. I spent the day cleaning the master bedroom, thoroughly opening windows to air out the lingering smell of the paint Amanda and Patrick had used. I burned sage in each corner, something my mother had always done to clear bad energy from a space. By afternoon, I had restored Harold's bookshelves as best I could. The built-ins were gone, but I found a handsome mahogany bookcase in the basement that worked as a replacement. I carefully arranged his books, dusting each one individually before placing it on the shelf. "We made it through, old friend," I whispered to Harold's photograph as I placed it back on my nightstand. Michael called to check on me around dinner time. "Any word from Amanda or Patrick?" "Nothing yet," I replied, "but I'm ready whenever they decide to respond." "Remember, stay firm but calm," he advised. "Document everything if they do return." The next day, I visited my bank again, this time to open a separate account for the rental income should Amanda and Patrick choose that option. The manager, who had known me for years, was supportive and offered additional advice on protecting my assets. I also spoke with Thomas in Seattle, explaining everything that had happened. He was horrified and immediately offered to fly out. "That won't be necessary yet," I assured him. "Michael is helping me, and I'm doing better than I have in months." "I had no idea things had gotten so bad," he said, regret evident in his voice. "I should have paid more attention when I visited." "We all missed the signs," I said. "But that's changing now." On Wednesday morning, I had just returned from grocery shopping when Amanda's car pulled into the driveway. She was alone without Patrick. I watched from the window as she sat in the car for several minutes, seemingly gathering courage. Finally, she approached the front door and rang the bell, rather than using her key, a small acknowledgement of the new boundaries. I opened the door but didn't immediately invite her in. "Hello, Amanda." "Hi, Mom," she replied, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in months. "Can we talk?" I led her to the kitchen, where I busied myself putting away groceries, as she perched uncertainly on a stool at the counter. "Patrick and I are staying with his parents," she began. "They don't have much space, so it's temporary." I nodded, but didn't fill the silence. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she continued, a hint of the old entitlement creeping into her voice. "We were just trying to make improvements to the house. You're making it sound like we were trying to take advantage of you." "Weren't you?" I asked quietly, pausing to look her directly in the eyes. "Using my credit card without permission. Trying to secure power of attorney behind my back. Planning to send me to assisted living so you could sell my home." Her face flushed. "That was Patrick's idea. He said it would be better for everyone." "Better for whom exactly?" I placed a can of soup in the pantry with deliberate care. "Not for me, certainly." "We were under financial pressure," she tried explaining. "Patrick's job loss hit us hard, and then there were the gambling debts." This was new information. Gambling debts? Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "He's been struggling with online betting for years. I didn't know how bad it was until recently. The loan using the house as collateral was to pay off bookies who were threatening him." I absorbed this information, feeling a complex mix of emotions. While it explained some things, it didn't excuse their behavior. "Why didn't you talk to me?" I asked. "I would have helped if I'd known the truth." "Patrick said you wouldn't understand." And then it just spiraled. She wiped away tears. "He convinced me that taking over the house was the only way out of our financial hole. He said you owed it to us as family." I placed the last of the groceries away and sat across from her at the counter. "Amanda, I raised you to be better than this. To be honest, respectful, and to stand on your own 2 feet. What happened to that young woman?" She broke down completely then, sobbing about how she'd lost herself in her marriage to Patrick, how his manipulative nature had gradually isolated her from friends and family, how his financial irresponsibility had created constant stress and fear. While I felt sympathy for her situation, I maintained my boundaries. "I understand you're in a difficult position, but that doesn't justify how you've treated me in my own home." "What are we supposed to do now?" she asked, looking lost. "That depends on you," I replied. "If you want to stay here, you'll need to sign the rental agreement, pay your share, and respect the boundaries I've established. That includes which bedroom you occupy." "And Patrick?" "The same rules apply to him. But Amanda, I want you to seriously consider whether staying with Patrick is in your best interest. From what you've told me, this relationship has brought out the worst in both of you." She nodded slowly. "I need some time to think." "Take it," I said. "But remember, I need your decision about the living arrangements within the week." As she left, I felt both exhausted and empowered. Setting boundaries was painful but necessary, not just for me, but perhaps for Amanda as well. The security cameras Michael had recommended captured Patrick returning to the house late that night, clearly intoxicated. He pounded on the door and yelled obscenities, but eventually gave up and drove away when I didn't respond. I sent the footage to Michael the next morning. 3 days later, Amanda returned alone with a surprising announcement. "I've signed a lease on a small apartment across town," she said, "and I'm filing for separation from Patrick." I tried to hide my relief. "That's a big step." "It's the right one," she replied with more conviction than I'd heard from her in years. "His gambling has ruined us financially, and I can't keep pretending everything is fine." She asked if she could temporarily store some of her personal belongings in my garage while she got settled. After consulting with Michael, I agreed with the condition that we inventory everything together. That weekend, Amanda returned with her brother Thomas, who had flown in to help her move. Together, they sorted through the items in the guest room and garage, separating Amanda's personal belongings from the household items that belonged to me and the things Patrick had purchased. It was a bittersweet day. While I was proud of Amanda for taking steps toward independence, I mourned the breakdown of trust between us. Thomas acted as a buffer, his presence, keeping the interaction civil and focused on practical matters. "I'm sorry," Mom, Amanda said as they loaded the last box into Thomas's rental car. "For everything. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope someday we can rebuild our relationship." "I hope so too," I replied honestly, "but it will take time and consistent respect on both sides." After they left, I walked through my quiet, reclaimed home. For the first time in almost a year, every room belonged to me again. I could watch whatever I wanted on television, cook meals I enjoyed, and move freely without feeling like an intruder. Michael called the next day with news that Patrick had been served with a restraining order after making threats against both Amanda and me. The security system proved its worth immediately, as the cameras caught him driving by the house multiple times that week. "You've handled this situation with remarkable strength," Michael told me. "Many people would have given in to avoid conflict, especially with family." I admitted, for too long. With my home secure again, I began the process of healing and moving forward. I joined a support group for seniors at the community center where I met others who had experienced various forms of elder abuse and exploitation. Sharing my story helped me process the betrayal and recognize that I wasn't alone. The weeks following Amanda's move out were filled with conflicting emotions. There was relief at having my space and autonomy back, but also a profound sadness at how our relationship had deteriorated. I missed the daughter I had once been so close to, even as I recognized that rebuilding trust would be a long road. For 3 weeks, our only communication was brief text messages about remaining logistics. I made several attempts to check in on her well-being, but her responses were polite and distant. The wall between us seemed insurmountable at times, built of hurt, betrayal, and regret. Then, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Amanda stood on the porch, hair dampened by the rain, looking both nervous and determined. "Can we talk?" she asked simply. I invited her in, offering tea as we sat in the living room facing each other like cautious strangers rather than mother and daughter. The silence stretched between us until she finally spoke. "I've been seeing a therapist," she began. "She's helping me understand how I ended up in this situation with Patrick and how I could have treated you so poorly." I listened as she explained how Patrick's manipulative behavior had escalated gradually over their marriage, isolating her from friends and undermining her confidence. How his financial irresponsibility had created constant stress that made his solutions seem necessary, even when they involved exploiting others. None of that excuses what I did, she added quickly. I'm an adult who made choices, terrible choices that hurt the person who has always been there for me. I'm so deeply sorry, Mom. The sincerity in her voice touched me, though I remained cautious. I appreciate your apology, Amanda. It means a lot to hear you take responsibility. There's more you should know, she continued, hands twisting nervously in her lap. Patrick wasn't just bad with money. He had serious gambling debts, tens of thousands of dollars to bookies and online casinos. The real reason he wanted to take over your house was to refinance it to pay those debts. My blood ran cold at how close they had come to potentially leaving me homeless. Why didn't you tell me? At first, I didn't know how bad it was. Then when I found out, I was too ashamed and scared. Tears welled in her eyes. He convinced me that taking control of your finances was the only way out, that you wouldn't miss the money because you had enough to last the rest of your life anyway. The casual cruelty of that statement left me speechless momentarily. And you believed that was acceptable? No, she whispered. Deep down, I knew it was wrong. But I was desperate and afraid, and it was easier to believe his excuses than face the truth of what we were doing. Over the next 2 hours, we had the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Amanda revealed that the separation from Patrick had become a formal divorce filing after she discovered additional secret debts and evidence he had been planning to take out a reverse mortgage on my house using forged documents. I've lost nearly everything financially, she admitted. My credit is ruined, my savings are gone, and I'm starting over at 43. But I'm free of his influence, and I'm working to become someone you can be proud of again. I reached out and took her hand. I'm already proud of your courage in leaving and facing the truth. That doesn't mean I trust you yet, but it's a start. In the months that followed, Amanda and I began the slow process of rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. She found a small apartment of her own and increased her hours at the dental office to support herself. I helped her financially in limited, documented ways, like paying for her therapy sessions and occasionally covering groceries. Michael helped me set up a formal arrangement where any financial assistance I provided was clearly recorded and structured, protecting both of us from misunderstandings or potential exploitation in the future. Amanda began joining me for Sunday dinners again, this time as a respectful guest rather than an entitled occupant. We started new traditions like taking a painting class together at the community center and volunteering at the local animal shelter. With my home truly mine again, I found a renewed sense of purpose and independence. I joined a widow's support group and made several new friends who understood the journey of rebuilding life after loss. We took day trips to local attractions and even planned a weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin. I renovated the guest bedroom, transforming it into a bright, welcoming space that reflected nothing of the tension it had once contained. When Thomas visited with his family, they stayed there comfortably with clear understanding of household boundaries and expectations. That Christmas, I hosted a holiday dinner for the first time since the ordeal began. Amanda came early to help cook, careful to ask before using any appliances or rearranging anything in the kitchen. Thomas and his family joined us, along with Eleanor and several of my new friends. As we gathered around the dining table, I looked at the faces of those I loved and reflected on the difficult journey of the past year and a half. The pain had been real, but so was the growth that came from it. I'd like to say something I announced as we prepared to eat. This past year taught me that sometimes love means saying no, setting boundaries, and demanding respect. It isn't always easy, but it's necessary for genuine relationships. I met Amanda's eyes across the table. It also taught me that people can change when they confront hard truths about themselves, and that forgiveness is possible even after deep hurt when it's built on honesty and respect. Later, as guests were leaving, Amanda helped me with the dishes, working alongside me in comfortable silence. "Thank you," she said finally, "for not giving up on me, even when you had every right to." "Family doesn't mean unconditional acceptance of harmful behavior," I replied. "But it does mean leaving the door open for growth and healing when the person is truly committed to change." As I settled into bed that night in the room that would always be mine, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible after such betrayal. Standing up for myself hadn't destroyed my family as I had feared. Instead, it had created the possibility for healthier relationships built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Harold's photograph smiled at me from the nightstand. "You were right," I whispered to him. "I was stronger than I thought." At 69 years old, I had learned that it's never too late to set boundaries, to demand dignity, to reclaim your power. Those lessons came at a high cost, but they transformed me from a woman who surrendered her space to avoid conflict into one who stood firmly in her worth and rights. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took your kindness for granted? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Remember that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for healthy relationships at any age. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more reflections on navigating complex family dynamics. And share this video with someone who might need encouragement to reclaim their power today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your home is your sanctuary, and you deserve to be treated with respect within it.